Welcome aboard the Southern Vectis Needles Breezer and what is widely reputed to be one of Britain's most spectacular bus rides. This commentary will point out places of interest and historical significance which you may care to visit along the route. If you wish to leave the vehicle at any point, then please just press one of the bells located in either saloon, and remember, you may hop on and off the vehicle as often as you like. We begin in the historic town of Yarmouth. Once called Yarmouth, meaning muddy estuary, this is believed to be the site of a Celtic settlement prior to the Roman occupation. In the 12th century, a town was built here by the Norman Baron de Redvers, who bestowed the first charter upon the town in 1135. Some 200 years later, Yarmouth was subjected to a series of attacks by the French, who sailed into the Solent and ransacked the town, and repeated this in the 16th century. This persuaded Henry VIII that a castle was needed to protect that part of the island from attack. The castle was completed in 1547, and since then, Yarmouth has been free from French or any other invasion. Over to your right, you will be able to see the path of the old Isle of Wight steam railway line, which ran 12 miles from Freshwater through Yarmouth before terminating at Newport. This line was opened in 1889 by the Freshwater, Yarmouth and Newport Railway and was closed in 1953 following a public inquiry. One of the original locomotives on the line, number 2 Freshwater, which was built in 1876 and was purchased in 1917 after a few years on loan, still survives to this day in a restored condition on the Isle of Wight Steam Railway in Haven Street. Lane to your left will take you through the picturesque villages of Wellow and Thorley, the latter being home to St Swithin's Church. There has been a church in Thorley since medieval times, the porch of which still survives, close to Thorley Manor. The replacement church was built a short distance to the east during the 19th century. Far ahead, and to both left and right, you will be able to see where the downs rise above the flat, fertile farmland. These low, rolling chalk hills form a natural backbone to the whole of the island and are a unique habitat to many species of wildlife. Charles Dickens said after a visit, "From the top of the highest down, there are views which are only to be equalled on the Genoese shore of the Mediterranean." It is possible to start at the Needles viewpoint at the end of Tennyson Down and walk the 26 miles to Culver Down above Sandown, following country footpaths nearly all the way, and crossing the road only some half a dozen times. This route is often referred to as the roof of the island, and walking along it has been described as flying low over the whole landscape, only more exceptional because of the wild flowers, birds and butterflies. travel around the island, you will notice the large number of copses, woods and forests. 9% of the island is wooded, and half of that is ancient woodland. The island is one of only 4 places in Britain where the endangered red squirrel is thriving. With an estimated island population of 3,500, the Solent provides a natural barrier from the outcompeting and stronger American grey squirrel. Anyone found to be releasing a grey squirrel, a mortal enemy of the red, could be fined up to £5,000 and jailed for 2 years. If you look across the road and onto your left, you will be able to see the site of the world-famous Isle of Wight Pop Festival of August 1970. This was, at the time, the largest pop festival ever held outside America, and is still referred to today as the mother of all festivals. This was also one of the last places the legendary Jimi Hendrix performed live. Jimi played East Afton Farm on August 30th, and 19 days later, tragically died. The attendance of this festival to this day remains the highest attendance for any music event in the country, with over 600,000 people turning up for the festivities. It currently ranks at number 7 in the world's most attended concerts, with only the likes of Rod Stewart and Jean-Michel Jarre overtaking the 600,000 figure. We will shortly be entering Freshwater Bay. The bay has been hewn from the chalk cliffs that surround it by thousands of years of exposure to the waves and the small river that runs from here to Yarmouth. Smugglers once used the caves around the bottom of the chalk cliffs, and these can be seen during low tides. Here at Freshwater Bay you can stroll along the pebble beach and enjoy a meal and ice cream at one of the many cafes. From here you can join the Tennyson Trail, which leads to the top of Tennyson Down, and eventually onto Allen Bay and the Needles. At the top of the down, at a height of 147 metres, stands a huge granite cross commemorating the life of Alfred Lord Tennyson. From here, on a clear day, it is possible to see Old Harry Rocks and the Isle of Purbeck to the west, Yarmouth and Lymington to the north, and to the east much of the Solent, as well as a large part of the western half of the Isle of Wight and St Catherine's Point, some 20 kilometres away across Bryston Bay. next stop is for the imposing Dimbler Lodge, which houses a museum dedicated to the life and works of the pioneering 19th century portrait photographer Julia Margaret Cameron. The gift of a camera in 1863 sparked Julia Cameron's interest in photography, and it was from her home and studio at Dimbler that the greatest of the Cameron photographs were made. The house is now open to the public and contains an exhibition of many of her works, a Victorian dressing-up room, as well as an exhibition of Isle of Wight pop festivals past and present. Over to the left, we will shortly pass the quaint and beautiful St Agnes Church, which was built with stone from a derelict old building in 1908 on land donated by Hallam Tennyson, who was the second Governor-General of Australia and son of Alfred Lord Tennyson. It is the only thatched church on the island. Over to the left are the extensive grounds of the Farringford estate. This stunning building was the home of Alfred Lord Tennyson for 40 years, from 1853 until 1892. As you view the approach to Farringford via the sweeping drive flanked by mature trees, you will appreciate why Alfred Lord Tennyson chose this immensely charming house as his home. In the autumn of 1853, Alfred and Emily searched the Isle of Wight, determined to find a quiet retreat where Alfred could write. On seeing Farringford, an imposing late 18th century house with Gothic-style windows, castellated walls, extensive secluded grounds, and breathtaking scenery, he said, "We will go no further. This must be our home." And so it was, for some 40 years. Tennyson wrote many of his most famous works in the library here, including Idylls of the King, his version of the Arthurian legend, and that library still houses a collection of mementos of his life. He was a famous figure, striding in hat and cloak over the downs where he loved to walk. He said that the sea air he breathed when up on the downs was worth 6pence a pint. We are now approaching Freshwater Village, which is the main shopping area that serves the west of the Isle of Wight. The parish of Freshwater was established in Saxon times. At this time, parishes on the island tended to be large and stretched from the north to south coasts. This ensured that each parish possessed a mixture of soil types that gave good agricultural land, woodland and downland. Freshwater is one of the largest parishes on the Isle of Wight, with a population of almost 5,400. It has an infant school, a library, a sports centre with a gymnasium and swimming pool, a skate park, and a large recreation ground with a comprehensive range of play equipment. Freshwater has some great benefits: clean, fresh air, miles of footpaths and bridleways, many of them through areas of outstanding natural beauty, good beaches with safe bathing and facilities for most other sports, from horse riding to paragliding. In 1635, Robert Hooke was born in Freshwater, the son of John Hooke Sr., who was the curate at Freshwater Church. Robert Hooke moved to London in 1648 and was educated at Westminster School before taking up a poor scholar's place at Christ Church, Oxford. He is credited with the invention of the watch balance spring, the development of microscopes, and most famously with the design of many London buildings, in collaboration with Sir Christopher Wren following the Great Fire of London in 1666. road on the right, opposite the War Memorial, will take you down to Totland Bay. It was not far from here, in the late 1890s, that the radio pioneer Guglielmo Marconi set up the first wireless transmitting station. The first readable transmissions took place between this station and a ship at sea on November 6, 1897. By June 1898, the service had advanced so far that it was possible for Lord Kelvin to send the first paid Marconigram from this station. The station has long since disappeared, but a granite memorial marks the site and can be found near to the viewpoint within the Alum Bay landmark attraction. The next building on your left was once the clubhouse to the old Freshwater Bay Golf Club, which closed in 1939, although the outline of some of the old tees is still visible on the down behind. This down is called Heddon Hill, and is also known as Heddon Warren, which was once the site of a rabbit farm colony. Rabbits were once called conies, and were not indigenous to the island, as the Normans introduced them here. Later, they were brought over from the mainland by the Coney Man, and became an important source of meat to the local people, being bred and farmed by a warrener. Up to this time, foxes also were not native to the island, and for anyone to have released a fox, the punishment was deportation to the colonies. Another animal not originally found on the island was the hare, later introduced by Sir Edward Horsey, who offered a young lamb in exchange for each breeding hare. The hares were then used for hunting. We will shortly arrive at the Needles landmark attraction, where you will find glass-blowing demonstrations, a 4D cinema, mini golf course and a sweet factory. Here you may buy the famous coloured sands of Alum Bay and take a chairlift ride down to the beach and back. There are also amusements, refreshments, ice creams and a gift shop. This is also the stop for the Needles Pleasure Cruise. For a small fee, you can choose between a 20-minute slow cruise to view the Needles Rocks and Lighthouse, coloured sands of Alum Bay, dramatic chalk cliff face and the surrounding coastal features, or a 15-minute fast trip on the high-speed rail. Whichever option you choose, you're guaranteed a breathtaking experience. Customers for the Needles Old and New Batteries and Clifftop Viewpoints should remain on the bus.